Okay. I think we've got a quorum. Should we go ahead and get going, Tom, or do you want to wait for the
Let's give him 2 more minutes. Unless Irene, you still here at City Hall or
mayor?
he generally
No, I'm home.
Should we go ahead and get going, Tom? Or do you want to wait for
let's give
He was in a meeting when I left at five-ish.
okay.
We'll give it one more minute.
All right. There's Artie.
Hello, Artie.
Artie is not at City Hall, it looks like.
Artie, you're on mute, Artie.
Artie looks like he's on vacation.
No,
Okay,
I'm
well,
not. I'm not. Am I supposed to be at City Hall?
No.
Oh, no, absolutely not.
No, remember I said I have to be somewhere at 7, so I'm
Oh, that's
outside
right.
the place I'm supposed to be at 7.
All right.
All right.
Well, given that, Ed, why don't I click start and you can get going.
Okay. All right. Good evening. Welcome to the August 21st, 2023 special meeting of the Board of Estimate and Taxation. Madam Clerk, can we call a roll, please?
Mayor Rilling. Mr. Abrams,
Here.
Mr. Constant,
Here.
Mr. Gilleret,
Here.
Mr. Gasimis,
Here.
Miss Yang. Here. 3, 4, 5. 5, we have a quorum.
Great. Okay. For tonight's meeting, we have one resolution and 2 associated action requests tied to that. Can I get a motion to move the resolution and the action items for discussion, please?
So
Move it.
Thank you, Artie, and let the record show that the mayor has joined us as well. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Madam Clerk, can I ask you to please read the resolution into the record, please?
Of course. Resolution requesting a special capital appropriation in the amount of $2,900,000 for the Norwalk Public Schools for the acquisition of 6 properties abutting the proposed South Norwalk School and other project-related purposes.
Thank you. And Alan, I believe you're here to talk on the resolution and the action items requested.
yeah, there's a little bit of echo going on. So
Yeah, I think Troy. Well, Troy and we'll just.
sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So let me just introduce myself. I'm Alan Lowe on behalf of the city of Norwalk, and also tonight with me on my staff is Joanne. So you see her name appear on screen. The request in front of you is for allocation of $2.9 million for land acquisition of a budding property to the South Norwalk School project. South Norwalk School, as you may know, the city of Norwalk purchased the Hatch and Bailey property about a year ago, a little more than a year ago now. And the property is about 11.7 acres. And all along, Joanne, can you do me a favor? Can you just, is it possible for you to upload the site plan so the commission can take a look at it?
I've got it handy.
There it is.
All right, somebody beat me to it.
Joanne was prepared.
So what happens require the property, we have been going through design phases and we are up to the construction document phase. Since the day one of this project, even though 11-acre generally speaking, it's sufficient, but at the same time, the property, the Hatch and Bailey properties have a substantial grade change. From the bottom of the property to the upper top portion is about 70 feet difference in elevation. So the upper portion of the property really inaccessible. So we limit the middle portion of the property and the lower portion of the property. And we using the lower portion of the property for bus drop off and parent drop off and parking. As you can see, we are really kind of defined and squeezed into that area that identified drawing. The yellow area are the adjacent properties that the city is seeking to request to purchase those property. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 property to the left, and 1 property, which is the old railroad spur line on the right, parallel to South Main Street. So as you can see on the drawing, so even when you try to lay out the site, I mean, it's kind of really awkward in the sense that we have a driveway going out, but like, it's really not really a driveway. And we are squeezed between different properties. So the purpose of the city's acquisition of these properties is to provide additional open space, as well as provide parking and drop off, improved parking and drop off for the new proposed school. Currently, this proposal is being submitted to us, have been submitted to the Planning and Zoning Commission for approval, with the understanding that we are looking to seek these additional properties, and that the project is going to go out to bid in probably around, I think around 6 months from now, and start construction in the spring. Recognizing that the we're going to take us about a year and a half to construct, which is the fall of 2025. At the same time, as the city currently has an incubating school at the old Columbus School for pre-K and K. So in about 2 years, those kids will be first, second, or third grade, I think it is. So when we open school, they would not be fully occupied at that point. So we only pre-K to third grade. So we still have time to kind of modify the plan to get it to be fully developed for the school purposes. So the money for this, we are recommended that we have residual money from the Jefferson School construction project. We have about $3.9 million, and recently we moved $1 million into the intersection improvement that's going to give it to the either DPW or transportation to do an intersection improvement project, whether it's traffic and drainage issues that the existing conditions. So we still have $2.9 million left, and we are requesting to move that money, create a new special appropriation for the acquisition, and then use the money, the residual from Jefferson School, to fund the acquisition process. Just one other thing I want to add before I stop. The 2. We have completed 2 appraisals from two separate appraisers, and the $2.5 million will generally cover the costs of all the acquisition. However, there's still potential of like premium costs that we may be encountered, as well as relocation costs. And also our current budget does not include the construction of these areas. So in the future, I will be coming back for additional money for the development of the site. But I think we're doing this one step at a time. We look to acquire the property and figure out what the timing of everything is and stuff, and then come back another time and go for another special appropriation or regular capital budget, depending what the cycle is. So I just want to be full disclosure that the $2.5 million does not complete the development as well as the relocation costs associated with these properties.
And Alan, just a point of clarity, you mean the 2.9, not 2.5, correct?
2.9, right?
Thank you. Do you have any sense at all as to what the additional incremental costs could be that the city would need to cover through either another special appropriation or through a regular capital budget request? Any sense?
I don't.
Oh.
I'm sorry. You're asking me that question, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't at this point. I think that the law department and I, Darren and I, have met with all of these property owners already, except one of them. We have talked to them. We are very respectful of the people that own the property owner that owns the property. We're going to work our best to work out a financial arrangement that works for them, for the city. As generally speaking, we always call it friendly purchase. I guess it's just a purchase, but it's it's a straight purchase. But eminent domain is part of our process, the tools in our toolbox that we have, but we're not using that as a, unless we have to, kind of thing. But our goal is to work something out with property owner that's workable for them and for the city. So the final cost of the acquisition of these properties are known at this time. So it's going to be an ongoing process. It's going to take us a couple of months to work that out. And for those property that we can work it out, we'll go for the common council and get authorization for eminent domain process.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for Alan?
Ed, this is Troy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Alan, a couple of questions. One is that we're taking money from the Jefferson project. Is that improvement project complete? The first question. And the second question, if you explain the eminent domain process, is there still negotiation once you determine to use it? And then who decides if there is a dispute or you're at a you're not able to come up with an agreement?
Sure. I can go first question. First answer the first question is we have completed Jefferson School project. It's finished about a year ago. So we went through the 1 year of post-construction warranty period. So we are pretty much set, and we are prepared to submit the reimbursement process with the state. So we are complete. I think after the $2.9 million, I think we have maybe like $30,000 or $50,000 left in the account just in case there's some miscellaneous stuff. But there's no additional work that needs to be done out of this capital budget account. So we are finished. The second question, I know Mario's here, so I think I saw him before, so he can he can answer those questions a lot better than I could. Thank you.
Good evening, Mario Coppola, Corporation Counsel. With regard to in response to your question about and I'll take my hand was raised. I'll lower that now. With regard to your question about the eminent domain process, if at the end point of a number of meetings, the Common Council will presumably take a vote on whether to authorize the city to proceed with acquiring the properties, including by eminent domain. And once that is done, we will continue to engage in good faith negotiations with the property owners to acquire the properties. Once the council has voted, we have 6 months from the date of that vote to file the paperwork with the court to effectuate the eminent domain taking. So we've already started those good faith negotiations with the property owners, and we'll continue to do so even after the council takes its vote at some point, presumably at one of their meetings in September, to engage in those good faith negotiations with the property owners. And then at some point, if we're unable to negotiate a settlement, or I should say a price for the property, for the acquisition of the property, for any of the properties, then we'll proceed with filing the paperwork with the court.
And then if it's an impasse, the court decides on the final price?
Ultimately, the court could eventually make that decision. It quite often happens where even if there is the eminent domain filing, that there could be further discussions with the property owner to try to reach a consensus on a price, even after the eminent domain paperwork is initially filed with the court.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. Number one, who are the owners of the 16 Meadow Street extension and the rail corridor?
And the rail corridor.
Yes.
Let me see how to answer this question. 16 Meadow Street. It's a commercial tenant. There's no a commercial owner. I don't know offhand. I kind of know who it is, but I don't know exactly who it is.
It's not the Hatch and Bailey group?
No, it's not Hatch and Bailey. No. I guess technically, I just didn't want to talk about the individual too much and publicly. But in any event, it's an empty lot. It's used for commercial truck parking right now. So there's no building on the property.
Okay.
Okay. It's only a property, and that's the only property that the property owner hasn't got back to us. All the other property has come back to us, and we sat down with them and a discussion. And all discussion has been positive in the sense that we understand each other. So it's a nice conversation. It's not like aggressive or nasty or anything like that. It's been very friendly. And again, the only person that we haven't get a response from is the 16 Meadow Street extension. So yeah, I don't want to get I think I know the property owners, but I'm not sure it's under different name and things like that. So I just don't want to
No,
get.
no, that's okay. That's not necessary. Just that,
Okay.
that conversation is fine. And the rail,
I'm sorry, the railroad, it used to be a railroad spur line. That's why it's linear like this. That's a whole piece of property. The railroad has sold the property to a contractor. They actually operate right now on the top of this yellow piece there. So they are looking to I think they acquired it. They acquired from the railroads for the purpose of I guess they want to sell it off bits and pieces because this thing goes all the way up to South Norwalk Station. So it's many sections to this, maybe 4 blocks or so, 4 or 5 blocks. So I think they bought it from the railroad for the purpose of resale kind of thing. But generally speaking, it's very linear. It's really doesn't really comply with zoning regulation in terms of building and things like that. So so we are talking to them directly, to the property owner.
because so in the 2.9 million purchase price, I looked up on the tax assessor website, and the 4 properties which are residences total to about 1.4 million. So that leaves about 1.5, well, in terms of assessment. I was curious as to what kind of purchase price you were looking for the Meadow Street and the South Main Rail Corridor. And then on the Oxford Street properties, are those being purchased at a significant premium to their assessed value?
Sure. I just want to say that because these are real estate negotiations, and this is a public hearing, so I want to just keep it as general as possible. We
Yes.
have, as I mentioned before, we had completed from 2 separate independent assessors. So we got assessed value for all of these properties. So again, it came in, it's not exact number here, but it's somewhere around that range. That's why we're asking for it. So I don't know whether the tax assessors numbers are, in fact, I'm not even sure the railroad properties actually identify a separate lot, because I don't think that district block and lot number, because the railroad in the old days, there's no district block and lot numbers. So when they cut it up, and I don't think there's a sign, there's no district block and lot number assigned to that piece. So overall, I think we can say it's there's 2 appraisers, so the price is a little different for each appraiser. So generally speaking, it's between 2.5 to 2.9 million dollars what we're getting. So I don't know the number you're looking at. Was it the market value or the assessed value? Usually it's 70% is the assessed value of the market
No.
value.
I was using the appraisal value.
Okay.
If I could be,
Sure.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. If I could be helpful, with regard to, I mean, generally, it's a good starting point for comparison to look at what the assessor has as values on properties. In this case, it's less relevant just because of the time period for our revaluation. So the city's citywide revaluation took place on October 1, 2018. So the values that you're looking at are based on market value derived as of October 1, 2018, based on the physical condition of the property as of the last grand list date. So the market has changed drastically for residential properties in throughout the country, certainly throughout Connecticut, and most importantly in Lower Fairfield County and Norwalk. Property values have gone up significantly from October 1, 2018 to the present, about 5 years later. And I think, COVID certainly had an effect on that. Fairfield County has certainly become a more desirable place to be, especially Norwalk. So the valuations that the assessor has on the properties reflected a market value from 5 years ago, which is probably fairly different than what it is today, based on current market conditions in comparison to 5 years ago. With regard to the request for the 2.9, it's based on where we anticipate hopefully we could acquire the properties for, based on initial offers and where we may end up if we're fortunate. And that's based on appraisals that we received. If we proceed at some point with an eminent domain, it's required by law that we have 2 appraisals by which we derive value, and it's 2 separate appraisers who independently value the properties without having any communications whatsoever with each other. And then we take the value that we do, the value we use is the value, which is the average of both of their appraisals. So
Okay.
two
No, I-
appraisals was done on each of the properties.
I understand. Just one thing, what are the anticipated relocation costs and what are there, and what would be the city's obligation in relocating individual families?
I think it's difficult to know the full scope of those expenses at this time. Sometimes there's also relocation costs with regard to a business as well. But with regard to the families, I don't think we've had an opportunity to figure that out yet. It's really done on a case-by-case basis. I think that the city will certainly work with property owners and any occupants of properties to try to provide them with time to relocate as well. I think we do have the benefit of being able to provide some time as well after the taking. So I think that part of the relocation costs will be dependent on how much time we can afford people to stay in the properties. So there's a whole host of circumstances. I think it's difficult to come up with an estimated number at this time.
But shouldn't relocation costs be just part of the purchase price that you buy the property, and or is there something extenuating relative to this acquisition?
It depends. I mean, if it's a arm's length transaction type, yes, relocation is on the seller. If there should be no, to the extent there is relocation costs, it would be those derived by a seller. But in the case of an acquisition for by eminent domain, there are certain relocation costs that are derived by the acquiring governmental entity, in this case, the city.
Okay, so the relocation costs would only be a line item relative to anything taken by eminent domain.
Yes, but sometimes you reach an agreement with somebody and relocation costs are part of it, even though you don't necessarily file the eminent domain paperwork, because it's part of the good faith negotiation. Sometimes you have an eminent domain where you reach a price with somebody and they want you to take it by eminent domain because there's a tax benefit to them. For example, on a 1031 exchange, having additional time to be able to find a relocation property. Those are what are termed as, and they're legal, it's called friendly eminent domain proceedings. So
And I just want to add two minor things. One is that, like Mario said, when we acquired Hatch and Bailey building, Hatch and Bailey as a business, they were in a kind of situation that they are considering potentially moving on. So there's no relocation cost. So it gives us a little more ability to negotiate the price of the property because there's no relocation. So it does. You're right. I mean, it does give us more flexibility in negotiating pricing. The other thing is interesting. I don't know what the answer is, but it's kind of interesting that recently we did a zone change. It used to be light industrial zone for all these properties. It's been changed to residential. So the commercial use or industrial use is grandfathered in. So I don't know how it affected the property value. So it's kind of interesting whether it actually make it more expensive or less. I don't know. But at the same time, is when we get the appraisal, it's based on current use, current zoning, which is residential zoning.
well, it's the determination of value in an appraisal. The first step is to determine what is the highest and best use, and irrespective, sometimes even if zoning would allow you to have another use, the appraiser would make a determination whether it would make sense to change the current use. So presumably, even with those zoning changes, the current use will remain the highest and best use for the properties.
Thank you both. Alan, can you speak to the second two actions, the revised wording for the two projects, the capital project and the library expansion, so that we can move all of this?
I'm getting a little echo. I didn't hear everything you said. Are you referring to the library project now?
I just want you to address the second actions requested, revising the project description for capital budget account 092-062105777C0662, funding for building programming phase with design options and moving that to program phase with design options and property acquisition.
Oh,
And
okay.
then the second piece on Belden.
Yeah, that's related to the library. So I can Mario can talk about the business and legal side. I just want to quickly, the reason why we're requesting the city and library is looking to acquire property for parking, and the action being requested is the utilization of existing funds in our capital budget account. We have a little more than $2 million in our current account. Generally, when we request capital budget, is for a specific project, let's say library expansion. And under that category, we spend for design services, we spend construction, and at time we spend for land acquisition. But for this property, we want to make it very clear that we are going to use that money for the money is available to us for the purpose of acquisition as well. Just want to clearly define it for accounting purposes. So beyond that, I'm going to have Mario to respond to the other questions, the other part of the questions.
Well, the city does desire to acquire a certain portion of the property at 11 Belden Avenue, which is approximately, I believe, about a quarter of an acre, where we have been for the last 5 years leasing a parking lot that's been used for patrons of the Norwalk Public Library. And we desire to acquire that property for potential future expansion of the existing footprint of the library, or for additional parking or other ancillary facilities servicing the library. The city has been, again, leasing that area for the last 5 years. That lease expires at the end of the month. The city has obtained a lease for, as you, I believe, know at this point, for property, for an area for parking on an adjacent parcel that's owned by the Eagles Club. And that's a temporary, that's parking that's provided on a temporary basis to replace this parking area. But the city does desire to acquire the parking lot. We've had discussions with the owner for some period of time this year, and we have not been able to reach a price that works for both parties. So the process here is for us to go through getting approval ultimately from the council to proceed with obtaining the property if necessary by eminent domain.
And in both cases, there is no incremental funding requested, no incremental expense required. It is simply adding, in both cases, the ability to do property acquisition with the existing funds for clarity. Is that a correct statement?
Yes, the funding was so the capital budget funding that's available right now is from 2 separate years. And I think once is a 450,000, the other one I assume is about $1.6 million. So anyway, yeah, we got the library got funding twice, and the way it's for the library expansion, but there's wording in it that talks about for design services. So since we're using for acquisition of property, again, typically we have the ability to use for that purpose, but we want to make it very clear to the public and to the board estimate that we are intending to use this money, portion of this money for land acquisition. So there's for transparency purposes.
Thank you. Any questions about this part of the resolution and the required actions?
Yeah, this is Troy. I have questions on the first part still, but going to this, I was surprised to see this. I thought we were done with the parking acquisition phase. I thought the Common Council did a great job with getting the Eagles parking lot lease set up for the going forward, and we also bought the Norwalk redevelopment building, which gave you 33 additional spaces. So I'm not happy. I'm not thrilled about this transaction. Mario, how much percentage is the parking lot only of the deal that was done with Alex 7 years ago, space-wise?
If you look at the property, you can kind of estimate the amount.
Is 17% the right number? I saw that in the past in other documents.
It sounds, based on just looking at it, it seems like around, plus minus 20% seems about
Okay. So if the deal was set 7 years ago at 4 million, whatever that number was, and you're just taking now, you're not taking the full 4 million that was set, right? Why are we just taking 17% of the amount of the $4 million number, which is about 800?
Let me try to answer that. We've been negotiating for that small piece of property in the back. This stands for the future of expansion of the library. The parking places at the Eagles, that was just a stopgap. And for employee parking, we certainly don't want people that have physical challenges parking there and having to walk to the library. So we're looking at this piece of property here as help us expand the library and give us the parking that we need.
To follow up on what the mayor said, a couple of things, and maybe
the 17% of the $4 million number.
Sure. Let me respond to that. With regard to the number you're referring to, it was a number that was an ultimate acquisition number in an option contract, in an option agreement that was, I believe, $4,850,000. And the city had decided not to execute that strike price in the option agreement. And so with regard to what the potential cost would be for an acquisition of the parking lot area, I don't think taking a percentage of that number in the option agreement is the right way to do it. We are in the process of obtaining 2 appraisals by certified commercial appraisers who hold MAI designations. And I think the basis for determining the appropriate value for that would be, at least the starting basis would be the average of those 2 appraisals.
And who's the owner of the property, Mario?
The property is owned by an entity that is controlled by Jason Milligan.
Okay, and so if negotiations have to go on and we are at this situation, we have to rely on that. Is this eminent domain? Are we looking at eminent domain options for this property?
Yes, there will be ultimately, as we continue through this process of meetings, ultimately there will be a vote by the Common Council, which we anticipate to be sometime at one of their September meetings, to authorize us to proceed with acquiring the property, including proceeding with taking it by eminent domain.
But I think the first thing is, Mario, is good faith negotiations. Once we have the authority to take it by eminent domain, then we're looking at good faith negotiations. We can work with the owner of the property and see if we can't come to an agreement.
Yes, that's correct. There's first of all, we have engaged in good faith negotiations. The mayor has been involved directly with those for some time throughout this year. But even after the council takes a vote for us to acquire the property, and if necessary by eminent domain, we still intend to proceed with additional good faith negotiations with the owner. And then at some point prior to 6 months from the date of the council's decision, we would have to file the paperwork with the court to effectuate the eminent domain if we're unable to reach an agreement with the owner prior to that.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you disclose what the last offer the city has
Have
made?
to jump off.
Not at this time. It's
Well, it was in I saw it in the paper a couple of months ago. I don't know if it was true or not.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know the number reported in the paper, and but not at this time. I think discussions like that are probably most appropriate to take place in eminent with regard to negotiations for acquisition of a property, and negotiations are probably best handled in executive session, and there's a carve out within FOIA for us to do so.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm just telling you what I've read in the public papers. So, and you don't know what that number is. The last number was reported.
I know I've been negotiating on behalf of the city. I have not reported a number as far as negotiating for the acquisition of that parking lot to the press. So I don't know if anyone else has given a statement, but I haven't, so I really don't know.
Okay, regarding both items. When was the last time we did a eminent domain? Have you done one while you've been in your position in the city?
I believe there's one property where we have done an eminent domain. There's others where we've
Tito Court.
yeah, Tentito Court was one which we did acquire, I believe, by eminent domain. There's been other properties in which we've started the process and ultimately negotiated a acquisition with the property owner. For example, the Hatch and Bailey property is one in which we started the process and with negotiations and ultimately were able to acquire it. There may have been others where there would have been a friendly eminent domain. I'd have to go back and check. I'm not sure.
And the other thing is now with going back to the school project, there's 6 properties. That gets very unwieldy, I would think. Is it all or nothing? What if you can't, what if one person doesn't set, I mean.
The answer is
How are you gonna deal with-
the answer is it's all the properties. I mean, we intend to acquire all of those properties. If we intend to try to do so in good faith negotiations with the owners, to the extent that we're unable to achieve that prior to 6 months from the date that the council makes its decision for us to proceed with acquiring the properties, then we would proceed with eminent domain on any of the properties. That's why we have the option. That's from a matter of public policy. That's why governmental entities such as the city have the ability to take property by eminent domain for a qualified public use.
Right. And the other thing is, and obviously any deals that you would work out with any of these properties would be subject to environmental issues, I would imagine, right? An out clause.
We've been doing some due diligence on the environmental. I'll let Alan speak to that as well.
Yeah, we have authorized a phase 1 environmental report. Typically for residential buildings, the worst situation, it's underground water tanks kind of thing. So they haven't completed yet. We need access to this property. So we met with some of these property owner probably like 2 weeks ago. So we were requesting permission to enter the property to do the for our environmental consultant to do the report. So we are fully aware that environmental concerns or presence of hazardous material, it's always a component of our discussion in terms of value and all that, and the cost of remediation if there's any issues and stuff like that. So yes, we are aware of that potential problem.
Thank you. Troy, any other comments or any comments from anybody else on the board?
No, I just don't know how we're going to handle this voting, Ed, on these items, because I'd be perfectly honest, I'm not happy with the last item. I don't know if you have to do them all at once, or you're going to do them separately. I'm not sure.
My understanding, I've looked for guidance from people who are smarter than I, but since it is one single resolution with the 2 action items assigned to it, that it needs to be approved in its entirety. Tom, Mr. Mayor, if I'm correct in that assumption, please correct me.
Well, I think Mario can give us a better answer on that, but if there's a problem with one of the resolutions or one of the parts of this, I don't think there's any problem with separating them out.
I agree with.
I'm not sure.
I agree with the mayor that the agenda provides for as a matter of public notice what items you're voting on. I believe they could be separated out.
All right. Very good. Then let's do it this way. Let's first vote on item 1, the resolution as read into the record by Madam Clerk earlier in the meeting. All in favor of the resolution?
Can I just, Mr. Chairman, can I just interrupt you for one moment?
Please.
If you're going to separate them out, is it possible just to summarize what you're voting on for the first one? And I understand you gave reference, but I just want to make sure it's clear on the agenda, please.
Sure. So the resolution again requests special capital appropriation in the amount of 2.9 million for Norwalk Public Schools for the acquisition of 6 properties abutting the proposed South Norwalk School and other project-related purposes. All in favor of the resolution? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The resolution is approved. Item number 2, the first action item, and that is the recommendation of the allocation of 2.9 million in special capital appropriation funds to the Norwalk Public Schools for the acquisition of 6 properties abutting the proposed South Norwalk School as identified here in this memo. See the attached in our agenda. And B, we recommend the reduction of 2.9 million from the free balance in the Jefferson School Improvement Project capital budget account number 0919-205-010-5777. C as in Charlie, 0619. All in favor of that action item, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That action item is approved. Action request number 2 has 2 parts to it. Part A is revise the project description for the capital budget account number 092-06210-5777. C as in Charlie, 0662. Currently, it reads funding building programming phase with design options. The proposed change is funding for building program phase with design options and property acquisition. This project was approved in the fiscal 2020 budget with a budget in the amount of $450,000, of which no actuals have been invested to date. Part B of this action is to revise the description for the capital budget account number 092-06210-5777. C as in Charlie, 066. Currently, it reads Belden Avenue Library Expansion Architectural Services. The proposed change is Belden Avenue Library Expansion Architectural Services and Property Acquisition. This project was approved in fiscal year 2021 with a budget of $1.57 million and no actual spend to date. All in favor of these actions signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Or ayes opposed?
Opposed?
Troy has opposed it. Abstentions? The action is approved with a vote of 4-1. Thank you all very much. Any other conversation before we move to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Seeing none, I accept the mayor's motion to adjourn. Can I get a second? Nobody's going to second the motion to adjourn. And the second,
That's okay.
we are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everyone.
Yep. Aye.